The reason I made this video is I could find nothing on the net for replacing a HRU216 axle. This was my second attempt. My first was an abject failure. I bought an axle off the net, but it didn't come with the necessary bits and pieces to connect it. Buying stuff on the net is a recipe for disaster, frustration and humiliation. Second time I bought this axle from a reputable supplier. I asked them for the bits and pieces that come with the axle to connect it. They said they had no idea what I was talking about. I said, well, I can't possibly buy this axle without the necessary bits and pieces. By the way, it costs 6 times the amount of the one on the net. They said, okay, let's check. After they checked, they found a little container, a little plastic bag with all the necessary bits and pieces in it. Also, I asked them what gear the axle was in. They said second gear. Well, turns out it was in first gear. I set the connection for the axle and the little gear lever to second gear. Now I don't have first gear. But the thing works. I only need second and third gear anyway. I rarely use first gear. Also, I'm not a mechanic, so there are probably a dozen things that could be done better. However, they say, as the saying goes, when an elephant learns how to fly, it should not be blamed for doing it badly. Okay, today we have a Honda HRU216 self-propelled, and she has a problem. To try to demonstrate the problem, first I'll engage the drive, and you can see the wheels lock at the back. So there's a connection between the gearbox and the motor. Often you can get a problem in the drive shaft here, and when you lock, the motor will move if that drive shaft connection is broken. In this case, the drive shaft connection is not broken, but there's a problem with the self-propelled. Drive I'll demonstrate. So to try to fix this problem, I intend to replace the entire rear axle of the gearbox. The first thing I've done is I've cleaned the mower. I've used the pressure cleaner to clean the back, to clean the underneath. Best to work on a clean machine. What I'm going to do now is drain the petrol, the oil, and disconnect the spark plug. Then we'll go to removing the plates at the back here. Okay, we'll drain the oil and the petrol. One thing, don't be tempted to reuse the petrol. Dirty petrol can give you more problems than you believe. Also, this problem that occurs when you engage and then the mower doesn't start to move can also be caused by a stretched cable, the engagement cable here. Now I have adjusted this cable to the maximum settings. There's no more adjustment in it. It could just be a stretched cable, but I'm not going to just try to replace the cable. I'm going to replace the whole gearbox. Now, when you get the gearbox, sometimes you'll get the gearbox without these bits here. This is the bit which connects to the actual gear selection mechanism. Sometimes you can just get stripped bits in here, and this will just move without changing your gear, but we're not having a gear change problem. At the moment, it's the other side that's having the problem, which is the engagement mechanism. I think. I don't actually know what's wrong with the gearbox. I haven't pulled it apart. However, I suggest when you buy your gearbox, make sure you get replacement cables. You get these bits as well. These are self-tapping screws. They're hooked into here on the other side. We'll see that later. These are bearings that the gear shaft goes through. Because we're going to be pulling everything apart, I suggest you get replacement bearings. These things are zip ties. I use them to compress the spring. Where's the spring? Here. For the spring on the machine, I'll feed these little zip ties through, and then I won't actually zip this one. I could, I suppose. And you can see that they work as pretty good spring compressors. You've got enough strength in your fingers, I believe, to compress these things. I put 2 more through just to hold it a bit straighter. That's when I'm taking them off. When I'm putting them on, I use the big one. it does a much better job compressing the spring. That'll give you enough play in the cable to be able to remove things without breaking things, fairly simply. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is start removing plates. There's a plate covering the drive shaft here with a screw down here. There we go. So that's the plate which covers your drive shaft here. When the drive shaft goes, you can actually move one of these ends by your fingers, but you can see here she's pretty much solid. I can't twist that and I can't twist this. So I know this drive shaft is not the problem. Okie dokie, next thing I've got to do is remove more screws to take the other plates off. Screw from there, from over there, and screws from underneath. I don't know if you can see this. There, these, this one here, this one here. Okay, so that will be the next step. And when we've done all this, I'll show you the machine with all the bits removed. I'm going to put her upside down. Have her upside down so that I can actually take the axle off. Okay, let's do that. Okay, flip the mower upside down. It's a good idea why you want to drain the fuel. Now, taking the bolts out, one thing to be aware of, watch out for this little bit here. Goes here. You'll need it to reconnect. So, take these brackets off. And we're ready to start removing the plates. There she goes. Now we're ready to start disconnecting the cables. One thing when you disconnect these cables, make sure you've loosened the cables from up the top here. Otherwise you're going to have a devil of a time trying to get some of those cables off. They won't move backwards, and they've got to be able to move backwards. They won't move backwards unless you've disconnected the cables from up here. Okay, so the next bit, very difficult to get it from here, so I'm going to put it back on the side. Be careful not to lose this, you'll need it. Okay, it's got a flat side, comes out, so that's loose. And the cable which is connected to here, which is, which one? Just loosen. Right, loosen that one, and we've loosened this one, which is the cable which comes up to here. You don't really have to put it back on later, and it's better when you've got more play in the cable when it's disconnected from there, and you can take it out from here. To get the axle out, we're going to have to take the wheels off, and then we'll have play there and there, and we'll see the bearings. Would have been cleverer to have removed the wheels. Be careful of these things. They're the little spring-loaded locks. It's a good idea when you got these off to give them a bit of a clean. Sometimes they jam up, and sometimes the wheels simply won't engage. And you take the wheel off, get some WD-40, give it a spray, lubricate and clean her up. To get the axle out, the pin has to come out here. You have to knock it out. But we won't do that yet. We'll take the other wheel off first. save these pins because you're going to need them for the new axle. Next thing, this pin came out easy. Sometimes they're a real bugger to remove. So, washer, pin. And this one came out easy as well. Thank God for small mercies, eh? Not able to remove this until we remove the drive shaft. So, not the best order to do things, and that drive shaft should have been removed before, but it's not impossible. Pull back the rubber boot. There will be a circlip. You can push the circlip with your fingers. You see it there where my fingers are? Yeah. You can squeeze that and just put the circlip up on a ledge. And that should expose another pin. The pin is right there. I've got to get something to push it out now. You can just pull it and it pushes up the spline and bingo, your drive shaft is out. At this point you can save the circlip or you can put it back in the hole and push the clip on top of it. Okay, she's out. There's the spline, just moves backwards and forwards. So that I don't lose the pin, I'm just going to move this circlip back. A bit hard on the fingers. Okay. Pins in there, and the circlip's in place. We'll do the reverse of that procedure later. Now when these things go, just to show you, this here is actually a shear pin. When you run into something with the mower, a couple of things can break. Let's say you run into a tree, the wheels are spinning, the gearbox is going, this is going, the motor's going, the motor's stopped. Let's say your wheels have got a really good grip on something, something's got to give. Most of the time what happens is the wheels just spin. But if the wheels can't spin because you might be on a really grippy surface, something's got to break. Your gearbox could break, the motor could break, this drive shaft could break. And in fact, what happens, or what should happen, is this little pin here breaks, because it's designed to break. It's a shear pin. When you replace one of these, after the shear pin breaks, you can buy the whole assembly for about 20 bucks on the internet. It's easy to put on, it's easy to take off. There's another connection similar to this at the other end. Don't throw them away, because usually only one shear pin breaks. Next time a shear pin breaks, you can use a spare shear pin. You take out this little clip on the back here, pop in a new shear pin, connect her up, and away you go again. So now we're disconnected from the drive. Okay, and we've got enough space now, I think, to she's not letting go. Okay, forgot something. She's connected to the height adjuster here. Now we could leave it connected to the height adjuster, or we could just remove it. If we remove it, it'll be a lot easier to move things. Okay, I've decided. We're going to remove the connection to the height adjuster. There's a little circlip here. Just push this back. See this spring? It's not tensioned up. It's a lot of the tension has got out of it. It's best to have it like that. If it's stretched, move the height adjuster so it's not tensioned. It'll be easier to move this later. One cable still connected. Remember I said before it'll be easier when we get a bit of play in it. Take it off the top here. Oh, I don't know if it could be disconnected, but I think I'll try the spring compression trick. There is just enough room up the top here. If you push the spring a bit, take one of these little zip ties, feed her through the top, take her out the bottom. Oh, this will be good. Okay. Through and compress it. I usually put a couple of them through because never seem to have enough compression out of using just one. Right. There should be enough play now to actually loosen this connection down the bottom. We've already managed to pop it off the top here, so it's quite difficult getting this out of this notch here. There's a hole, unless you've got it loosened up the top here. You must loosen the top bit, else I've seen people break this thing off. What we've got to do is feed that cable through that slot. That whole pin comes out. There she goes. And off we go. Okay, I found a better way to compress the spring. So this is a spring and it's been compressed using a cable tie. I have this thing made up, which is a standard vice grip, got a couple of teeth on the end. So with the vice grip into the spring and then squeeze the vice grip. Bingo, spring compressor. Now we can put a whole pile of play. I've got room for a new cable. Right. So now, flip it back over. And there should be enough play. Slip the whole thing out. There she goes. Just undo these 3 bolts here. Lose them. Take off the plate. This aside. Which holds the bearing in place. Pop the bearing out and put the new bearing in there. And Bob's your uncle. You should just come out easy as pie now. It just leaves this connection down here. There's no need to take that off because we're going to put a whole new cable in. That's the old one. Using the old gearbox as a reference, so we need to attach a couple of things. This thing here is going to go here like this. These are self-threading bolts, only go in once. They're designed never to be removed. And it can be a bit of a pain to put in. Managed to get them started and get them in place. They're designed not to be removed. The washer for this to go in here, I'm going to have to take that off, and the default position I'm going to choose is what I believe is second gear, which is lined up with that there. I believe that's first or third. I think that's first, second and third is up here. Here's we pray. But that is the right setting for second gear. We've got to get that connected to there. don't actually have any bits here, so we need that pin. It's dodgy to get off once you get them on. Hey, here we go. Now, I've already loosened this one. Of course, the cable, that's not the cable, this is the cable. Looks like that. And she needs that pin to go through there. So that bit goes up there, and we don't have one. Okay, I couldn't get that off. I need a separator in there, and I suppose I can find something to separate it with, but I think it's easier if I just grab hold of this, which looks like a split pin, and take the split pin out. Yep. Okay, by turning this pin around, I managed to get to the legs, straighten them out, pull the split pin out using needle nose pliers, which let me push this little, what is it? I don't know, what do we call it? And I can use it to connect the new cable. Spread the split pin. So now we're ready to put this whole assembly together. In here. Where does that go? Take this whole lot off. No. Screw up. I'm using this as my guide. Try to sort of center it. Okay, just put the pin in place after about second gear, and now feed this through. Okay, I've managed to get the pin through there and the split pin through and this attached. For future reference, I think that whole thing will be a lot easier if this is assembled last. It'll give you more play to get all these bits together. Okay, so now we've got this back in there. And we pray that we have it in second gear. Now comes the connection here. What we're going to do is put this cable end in here. Now we've got to compress the spring so that it goes all the way up there. And to do that, we'll use cable ties. So we're got the cable in, springs there. That spring's got to come all the way up and over top of this thing, and then that's got to sort of feed in there. So to do that, you need 5 hands or have a spring compressor. I use the cable ties as a spring compressor. And you can feed that in. I think that's in. I'll cut the cable ties. There we go. Nearly is not good enough. Got to go over both flats. We're using cable tie as a spring compressor. I was able to lever it finally over those 2 bits, and now the spring's in place, cables in place. Okay, cables are in place. Time to start reassembling everything. The new bearing. I didn't replace that bearing. I'm going to have the pusher to get it back in place, which seems a reasonable condition. Right. And this plate that holds everything in place. That pin's got to come in the slot. You can see it down here. Maybe. You got it? Here we go, big test.